Have you ever wondered what it would be like to hold a power so immense, a wisdom so profound, that your story would be whispered in awe for 3,000 years? Imagine a king who, when offered anything his heart desired by God himself, chose not gold, not power, not a long life, but a single priceless gift: wisdom. This is the story of King Solomon, a man who, with that divine wisdom, forged a golden empire of unimaginable wealth, lived a life of breathtaking luxury, and, as ancient legends claim, even commanded legions of demons, bending them to his will as his slaves. His court was a spectacle of splendor, his harem a collection of 1,000 women, 700 royal wives, and 300 concubines. Yet this man, the wisest who ever lived, the man whom God loved so deeply, he gave him a second name, Jedediah, meaning beloved of the Lord. This very man turned his back on the divine source of his strength. How could a mind so brilliant make a choice so catastrophic? How did his golden age crumble into dust? Today, we will unlock the secrets behind the enigmatic life of King Solomon, secrets that few truly understand. We will journey from the divinely orchestrated moment of his birth to the tragic and spectacular collapse of his empire, an empire that God himself had destined to endure forever. What you think you know about Solomon is merely the surface. The truth, buried in scripture, legend, and the silent lessons of history, is far more shocking and profound. What we are about to uncover is a timeless lesson in power, temptation, and the ultimate price of compromise. The ending to this story, I promise you, will be one you don't expect. Before we descend into this incredible saga of wisdom and ruin, take a moment. Look around you. Where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it? Let us know in the comments below. It's incredible to think how this ancient story connects all of us across every time zone right now. Let's begin. The genesis of a legend often lies in the shadows of the past. And to understand Solomon, one must first understand the towering figure of his father, the legendary King David. David was more than a king. He was a warrior poet, a shepherd boy who slew a giant, a man after God's own heart, and one of the most celebrated leaders in the annals of Israel's history. His life was a tapestry of glorious victories and profound personal failings. If you wish to delve deeper into the thrilling account of David and his epic confrontation with Goliath, a tale of faith and courage against impossible odds, we have a video dedicated to his story right here on our channel, which you can explore after this journey. David's reign was foundational, but God's blueprint for Israel was far grander, and the next phase of this divine plan centered on a son who was yet to be born. Solomon was chosen from the womb, destined not only to inherit a kingdom, but to fulfill a sacred promise that David himself could not: the construction of a magnificent, permanent temple for the Lord in Jerusalem. This divine commission, a task passed from father to son, is meticulously recorded in the first book of Chronicles, chapter 28, verses 5 and 6, where David declares that God has chosen Solomon to build his house. Solomon's birth occurred at a pivotal, delicate moment in David's life. It came after the infamous and scandalous affair with Bathsheba, a dark chapter that had brought judgment and sorrow upon David's house. Yet, through repentance and divine grace after the loss of their first child, David and Bathsheba were granted a second chance. God's forgiveness manifested in the birth of a new son, a child who would be deeply and personally loved by God himself. From his earliest moments, Solomon was marked by a special blessing, a divine favor that set him apart and destined him for greatness. His very name, Solomon, derived from the Hebrew word shalom, means peace. It was a prophetic name foreshadowing the unprecedented era of tranquility and prosperity that would define his reign, a stark contrast to his father's life of constant warfare. The second book of Samuel, in chapter 12, verses 24 and 25, reveals a detail of profound significance. The scripture explicitly states that the Lord loved him. This divine affection was so potent that God, through the prophet Nathan, bestowed upon the child a second name, Jedediah, which translates to beloved of the Lord. This wasn't merely a term of endearment, it was a divine declaration of his unique role in the unfolding history of Israel. He was to be the wise king, the builder, the bringer of peace and stability. The stage was set for a golden age. But the question that would echo through the centuries was a haunting one. Could he, with all this divine favor, remain faithful to this sacred heritage until the very end? Solomon's ascension to the throne of Israel was not a seamless transition. It was born from a crisis of uncertainty that threatened to plunge the kingdom into civil war. In the twilight of King David's life, as his strength faded, a power vacuum emerged. Adonijah, another of David's ambitious sons, saw his opportunity. Believing himself the rightful heir, he began to gather supporters and made a bold attempt to seize the throne. The situation was electric with tension, a political firestorm brewing within the royal court. However, even in his final moments, David's will was resolute. He reaffirmed the divine plan that had been revealed to him years prior. Solomon, and Solomon alone, was to be his successor, bolstered by the unwavering support of the prophet Nathan and Solomon's own mother Bathsheba, who reminded the aging king of his sacred oath. The promise was swiftly fulfilled. This dramatic confirmation is captured in the first book of Kings, chapter 1, verses 28 through 30. With his authority, David officially declared Solomon as the new king. In a decisive public ceremony, Solomon was anointed and crowned, thus initiating one of the most prosperous, peaceful, and legendary reigns in the entire history of Israel. The defining characteristic of Solomon, the quality that would make his name immortal, was his wisdom. This legendary intellect was not something he was born with in its entirety, but a gift that stemmed from a single, humble, and profoundly wise choice made before God. In a vivid dream at Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon and made him an offer of breathtaking scope. "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." A younger, more short-sighted man might have asked for immense riches, for the death of his enemies, or for a long and healthy life. But Solomon, feeling the immense weight of his new responsibility, looked beyond the temporal. He asked for wisdom. He pleaded for a discerning heart to govern God's people and to distinguish between right and wrong. This selfless request pleased God so profoundly that he not only granted Solomon a wisdom unparalleled in human history, before or since, but he also blessed him with the very things he did not ask for, riches and honor beyond measure. This divine encounter, detailed in the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 5 to 13, was the foundational moment, the turning point for both Solomon and the entire kingdom of Israel. His decision to seek wisdom above all material goods demonstrated his sincere desire to be a righteous and just leader. This singular choice not only cemented his reputation for sagacity, but also acted as a magnet, drawing leaders, queens, and kings from the farthest corners of the known world, all seeking to hear his counsel and witness his brilliance firsthand. It prompts a question for each of us to consider. If you were in Solomon's place, faced with that divine, open-ended offer, what would you ask of God? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Solomon's choice for wisdom over wealth or longevity revealed the deepest desire of his heart: to rule with justice and righteousness. When God offered him anything he could imagine, Solomon recognized that his primary, solemn duty as the new king was the welfare of the people of Israel. He understood that true leadership is not about power or prestige, but about the profound discernment required to make fair and balanced decisions. This choice did more than just lay the groundwork for a prosperous reign. It powerfully reinforced the idea that true wealth is not found in gold or silver, but in the moral clarity and the capacity to govern justly. Solomon's choice, guided by divine inspiration, established him as one of the wisest rulers in the annals of biblical history. One of the most iconic and dramatic demonstrations of this God-given wisdom was the famous judgment between the two women who both claimed to be the mother of a single infant. The case was a seemingly impossible dilemma. Both women had recently given birth, but one of their babies had died in the night. Now both stood before the king, fiercely claiming the living child as their own. With no witnesses and no evidence, the court was at an impasse. The case reached Solomon, who, with a stroke of what seemed like brutal genius, proposed a chilling solution. He called for a sword and ordered the living child to be cut in two, with each woman receiving half. The court must have fallen into a stunned silence, while one woman, hardened by her grief and jealousy, callously agreed to the verdict, saying, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two." The true mother's heart broke. She cried out in anguish, pleading with the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." She would rather give up her child forever than see him harmed. In that moment of selfless love, Solomon's wisdom shone brightly. He declared, "Give the living child to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." In that instant, he had not only resolved an impossible legal dilemma, but had also revealed the profound depth of his divine discernment. The news of this judgment spread like wildfire throughout Israel, and the people held their king in awe, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. This single event became a powerful and enduring symbol of the divine intellect that God had bestowed upon him. Solomon was not only a wise judge, but also a master of administration, finance, and commerce. His reign was distinguished by a sophisticated and multifaceted economic engine that generated unprecedented wealth and prosperity for his kingdom. Let's explore the four primary streams of revenue that contributed to his legendary fortune. First, taxes and tribute formed a significant and consistent source of income. The biblical record estimates that during his reign, Solomon received approximately 666 talents of gold annually just from his base revenue, which equates to about 25 tons of pure gold each year. In today's market, the value of that annual income would be staggering, well over $1.5 billion, meaning over his 40-year reign, this source alone brought in a value equivalent to tens of billions of today's dollars. This figure illustrates the incredible financial stability and organizational prowess he established within his kingdom, ensuring a constant and abundant flow of resources to govern effectively and fund his ambitious projects. Beyond domestic taxes, Solomon aggressively promoted international trade, establishing strategic alliances with several nations, most notably with the Phoenicians of Tyre and with Egypt. He masterminded the creation of new trade routes by land and sea, facilitating a vibrant exchange of valuable commodities. Caravans laden with spices, precious woods like cedar and algum, gold, silver, ivory, and precious stones moved across the deserts, while his fleet of ships, built in partnership with the expert Phoenician mariners, sailed from the port of Esion-Geber to the distant, mysterious land of Ophir, returning with untold riches. This international trade was immensely profitable, estimated to have brought Solomon an additional massive influx of wealth annually. This robust commercial network transformed Israel from a regional power into a vital hub of global commerce in the ancient world. And the economic engine did not stop there. Solomon also knew how to expertly leverage the natural resources of his own kingdom. The vast forests of Lebanon, acquired through his alliance with King Hiram of Tyre, provided an endless supply of prized cedar and juniper wood. This timber was not only essential for his monumental building projects, including the temple and his own palace, but was also a highly sought-after export. It's estimated that the careful management and sale of these lumber resources generated another substantial portion of his annual income. The meticulous stewardship of these natural resources was a cornerstone of the economy during his reign. Furthermore, the monumental construction projects undertaken during his time were themselves a source of economic stimulus and revenue. These projects, from the Grand Temple in Jerusalem to Fortified cities, store cities, and chariot cities scattered across his kingdom were a stunning display of his wealth and power. But beyond their symbolic value, they created mass employment and spurred the domestic economy. The civil construction sector boomed, with tens of thousands of laborers, artisans, and overseers employed. The economic activity generated by these massive undertakings, from quarrying stone to casting bronze, likely contributed significantly to the royal treasury. While the Bible does not provide an exact figure for the total wealth Solomon accumulated throughout his lifetime, the available information makes it clear that he was, without question, one of the wealthiest men in all of human history, with a fortune that would be measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars today. Solomon's reign was not just marked by extraordinary wealth and opulence, but by brilliant and effective financial management. His ability to generate revenue from these multiple streams elevated Israel to a position of immense prosperity and international prominence, making it a leading center of trade, culture, and power in its time. If you are intrigued by the financial principles that Solomon used to generate and manage this vast wealth, many of which are rooted in biblical wisdom, consider exploring resources on financial stewardship from a biblical perspective. The wisdom Solomon taught, much of it recorded in the book of Proverbs, offers timeless guidance on how to achieve true and lasting prosperity. For instance, in Proverbs, he teaches us the value of diligence, prudence, and seeking wise counsel, principles that built his own kingdom. Solomon was also renowned for his magnificent architectural undertakings, the most famous of which was, without a doubt, the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem. This temple was not merely a place of worship. It was a physical manifestation of God's glory on earth and a powerful symbol of Israel's wealth, stability, and covenant relationship with the Lord. Using the most precious materials available, the finest cedar from Lebanon, massive blocks of hewn stone, and vast quantities of gold and silver, Solomon constructed a building of unparalleled splendor, as described in breathtaking detail in the first book of Kings, chapter 6. The dedication of the temple was a seminal moment in Israel's history, a week-long celebration where Solomon offered a moving prayer, and the very glory of the Lord, in the form of a cloud and fire, descended and filled the sacred space, signifying God's presence among his people. Beyond the temple, Solomon built a series of other impressive structures, including his own lavish palace, which took 13 years to complete, and fortified numerous cities throughout his kingdom. Each project was planned with meticulous attention to detail, seamlessly combining aesthetic beauty with strategic functionality. The temple, in particular, became an enduring icon of faith and Israeli culture, remembered for generations as an extraordinary example of Solomon's capability as both a ruler and a builder. Anyone who has heard the story of Solomon knows that his reign was a period of breathtaking opulence. There are numerous reports of his immense wealth, including the famous and perhaps legendary Table of Solomon, an artifact said to symbolize the sheer splendor of his court. This table was reputedly crafted from solid gold and adorned with an array of magnificent precious stones, reflecting the level of luxury that was commonplace in his royal presence. The first book of Kings, chapter 10, gives us a stunning glimpse into this reality, stating, "All King Solomon's goblets were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Nothing was made of silver, because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's days." He was also famous for hosting grand feasts that drew important dignitaries from across the nation and beyond. The finest foods and wines were served in staggering quantities at these banquets, featuring a vast array of exotic dishes that showcased his access to diverse ingredients, a direct result of his extensive trade network. Solomon's fame for wisdom and wealth spread so far that kings and queens from other nations made long pilgrimages just to meet him, to test his wisdom with hard questions, and to gaze upon his riches. The most famous of these visitors was the Queen of Sheba, who came with a great caravan bearing spices, gold, and precious stones, and was left breathless by what she saw. All this wealth and luxury served to demonstrate not only how important and powerful a monarch he was, but also the blessing of God upon his reign and the prosperity of the people of Israel. Solomon was also profoundly famous for his enormous harem, a household of women that included an astonishing 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. He provided for all of these women with incredible luxury, affording them a life of comfort and high status. Although the Bible doesn't describe the specific attire of his wives and concubines, one can easily imagine them draped in luxurious fabrics, adorned with gold and precious stones. The biblical book, the Song of Solomon, is filled with poetic verses that speak of a beauty and splendor characteristic of the royal court of that time. In chapter 4, verse 9 of the Song of Solomon, the lover, often interpreted as Solomon, describes his beloved, highlighting her beauty, which is enhanced by perfumes and jewels, suggesting that the women of his court dressed in an elegant and sophisticated manner. This impressive number of women, however, was about more than just a symbol of power or personal desire. Many of his wives were the daughters of kings from neighboring nations. These marriages were, in essence, political treaties. These unions served a crucial strategic purpose. They secured political alliances and were instrumental in maintaining peace between Israel and the surrounding kingdoms. But one must wonder, was this diversity of wives and concubines truly a blessing? It is here that the dark side of this glorious story begins to emerge. The Bible itself sounds a clear and ominous warning about the consequences of these alliances. Many of these foreign women, each one a princess in her own right, brought with her the worship of her own native gods. The first book of Kings, chapter 11, verse 4, delivers the devastating verdict. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. The great king, builder of God's holy temple, fell into idolatry. He permitted and even participated in the construction of altars to foreign deities like Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites, to whom children were sacrificed. And so Solomon, once known for his unwavering devotion to the Lord, began to worship other gods. This was the critical turning point in his life, the moment of his great tragic fall. The vast wisdom God had given him did not prevent him from making dangerous choices driven by passion and political expediency. What followed was a slow, corrosive spiritual decay that would bring grave and irreversible consequences upon his kingdom. The Lord's anger burned against Solomon because his heart had turned away from the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him specifically not to follow other gods. As a result, God declared that he would tear the kingdom away from Solomon and all that he had built. However, because of God's love for his father David, this judgment would not fall during Solomon's own lifetime, but during the reign of his son. This passage serves as a powerful and sobering reminder that even with all the wisdom and wealth in the world, Solomon was vulnerable to the influences he allowed into his inner circle. This moment in Solomon's life forces us to engage in personal reflection. Are we consciously aware of the influences of the people we allow into our lives? Or are we, perhaps without realizing it, allowing them to pull us away from our core values and from what we know to be right? It was after this period of immense success and a growing awareness of his own spiritual compromises that Solomon is traditionally believed to have compiled one of the most important books of wisdom in the Bible, the Book of Proverbs. This collection of wise sayings, written during his reign, was Solomon's attempt to transmit his vast, God-given wisdom to future generations. It was intended as a practical guide to lead his people toward a life of virtue, prudence, and righteousness. Proverbs covers a vast range of topics, including the supreme importance of wisdom, morality, diligence, honesty, and the complexities of interpersonal relationships. These practical teachings were designed to provide a solid foundation of moral and ethical principles that would help people live in peace, harmony, and prosperity. With his immense experience and profound insight, Solomon desired that these principles would not just be understood, but applied in daily life, leading to both spiritual and material well-being. The book of Proverbs remains a testament to Solomon's legacy as a wise and just king who, at his best, sought to instill righteousness in all things. Yet, beyond the canonical texts, the story of Solomon takes a turn into the realm of the mystical and the supernatural. No tale is more intriguing or more dark than the legend of his command over the demonic realm. It is crucial to remember that this narrative is a legend, rooted in ancient folklore and apocryphal traditions like the Testament of Solomon, and cannot be definitively confirmed within the canonical scriptures. Though this story is not found in standard biblical accounts, it presents fascinating elements that are worth considering as part of the broader legend of the king. According to these traditions, King Solomon came into possession of a magical ring, often referred to as the Seal of Solomon. This ring, said to be a gift from God delivered by the archangel Michael, was inscribed with the sacred name of God and granted Solomon the astonishing power to control demons, spirits, and other supernatural entities. With this ring, Solomon could summon, bind, and imprison malevolent spirits, compelling these powerful beings to carry out his commands. A famous example associated with these legends is the use of these demons in the construction of the Holy Temple. According to the lore, Solomon summoned these entities to perform the heavy and difficult labor, such as quarrying and transporting the massive stone blocks, thus avoiding the defilement of the sacred work by human toil and dramatically accelerating the building process. The use of iron tools was said to be forbidden in the construction of the altar, and legend holds that Solomon used a demon-found creature called the shamir, a worm that could cut through stone to shape the rocks. These demons, controlled by Solomon, were thus harnessed to serve the kingdom's needs, demonstrating a supposed mastery and balance between his spiritual authority and his earthly power. The legends also mention that Solomon possessed an intimate connection with the natural world, including the ability to converse with animals and plants. This power was also said to have been granted to him through the ring and his wisdom, but it extended into the control of the spiritual realm, where Solomon kept the forces of darkness at bay, protecting his kingdom and its citizens from evil influences. In the Testament of Solomon, the king is described as systematically interrogating various demons, forcing them to confess their names, their functions, and the angels who held power over them. He would then seal them away or command them to assist in the work of the temple. He ordered these malevolent spirits to cooperate in the building of a holy place, a powerful symbol of his dominion over evil and his dedication to God. These stories, even if not scriptural, reinforce the image of Solomon as a ruler guided by God, possessing not only great wisdom but also authority over the spiritual world. His use of the ring and his binding of demons portray him as a mediator between heaven and earth, maintaining order and justice in both the physical and spiritual planes. These accounts highlight the constant struggle between good and evil, with Solomon representing the divine authority that subjugates evil, not for his own glory, but to fulfill the will of God and to bring peace and prosperity to his kingdom. However, the wisdom of Solomon was a double-edged sword. It is vital to understand that this profound intellect could be used for both good and ill. There are accounts within the scripture itself that suggest Solomon used his wisdom for personal gain and to amass his staggering wealth. The construction of his glorious temple, while a magnificent religious landmark, involved the use of forced labor and the imposition of heavy taxes upon his own people, a fact mentioned in 1 Kings chapter 5. This indicates that despite his great wisdom, not all of his decisions were beneficial for the common people of his kingdom. This teaches us a crucial lesson. Wisdom itself is a neutral, powerful tool. It can be wielded for righteous purposes or for selfish ambition. True wisdom, the kind that endures, must be guided by the principles of justice, compassion, and righteousness. It is a stark reminder that our choices, especially the choices of leaders, have long-lasting consequences on the lives of those around us. As Solomon reached old age, he entered a period of deep and somber reflection on his own life, his unparalleled achievements, and, tragically, his profound regrets. During his reign, he had built the magnificent Temple of Jerusalem, accumulated more wealth than any king before him, and become renowned for his matchless wisdom. Yet, as he grew older, he began to fully grasp the consequences of his choices and the spiritual cost of his drift away from God. In his final years, Solomon seems to have reflected on the ultimate emptiness of worldly wealth and sensual pleasures. This inner struggle is starkly evident in the book of Ecclesiastes, which is traditionally attributed to him. In the opening verses, in chapter 1, verse 2, he delivers his famous melancholy verdict. "Meaningless, meaningless," says the teacher, "utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless." This pervasive sense of disillusionment and regret likely emerged as a direct consequence of his political marriages and his slide into the worship of foreign gods, which had alienated him from the very God who had blessed him so abundantly. He began to question whether his wisdom, wealth, and power held any real lasting value. He came to realize that in the end, the only thing that truly mattered was to fear God and keep his commandments. The old age of Solomon is a critical reminder that no matter what we achieve in this world, it is essential to maintain a right relationship with God and to live according to his principles. Solomon's regret shows that at the end of life's journey, true wisdom is not found in riches or triumphs, but in the search for truth, justice, and the practice of eternal values. The death of Solomon marked the end of an era, a reign filled with glorious accomplishments but also shadowed by challenges and deep regret. Although the Bible does not provide many details about the specific circumstances of his death, we know that he passed away at around 60 years of age, after a long and momentous reign of 40 years. His death is noted in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 41, where it reports that he was buried in the city of David, his father's city. As we have seen, the Lord was deeply angered with Solomon for his worship of other gods. Consequently, God had decreed that the kingdom of Israel would be divided after his death. Solomon's son, Rehoboam, became the new king, and it was through him that God's promise to divide the kingdom would be fulfilled. When the people of Israel came to Rehoboam, they made a reasonable request. They asked him to lighten the heavy burden of taxes and forced labor that his father, Solomon, had imposed upon them. Rehoboam found himself at a crossroads, uncertain how to respond. He first sought the counsel of the elders who had served his father. They advised him to be a servant to the people, to be kind, and to listen to their request. But Rehoboam foolishly rejected their wise counsel. Instead, he turned to the advice of his young, arrogant friends who had grown up with him. They advised him to be even tougher on the people, to show his power. Rehoboam's disastrous decision, where he famously told the people, "My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions," led to an immediate and catastrophic rebellion. The 10 northern tribes of Israel seceded, forming their own kingdom under the leadership of Jeroboam. The schism was immediate and brutal. The northern kingdom quickly descended into institutionalized idolatry, setting up golden calves to worship, turning their backs completely on the Lord and the temple in Jerusalem. This led to a rapid decline. Financially, the divided kingdom was a shadow of its former self, crippled by the loss of unity, trade routes, and resources. The practices of idolatry and injustice led the people far away from the prosperity they had experienced under Solomon's golden age. In a very real sense, one could conclude that everything Solomon had built began to crumble piece by piece during the reign of his own son. Solomon's legacy, therefore, is profoundly complex and dual-sided. On one hand, he is remembered as one of the wisest and wealthiest kings of Israel, a master builder who established diplomatic alliances and promoted a commercial empire that strengthened the kingdom. On the other hand, Solomon's legacy also serves as a stark warning about the dangers of turning away from God. His foreign alliances and his compromise with pagan worship left a devastating negative impact on Israel, sowing the seeds of division and idolatry that fully blossomed after his death. The death of Solomon and his legacy represent both the grand achievements of a wise leader and the immense challenges that arise from reckless personal choices. His life serves as a timeless lesson on the critical importance of remaining faithful to divine principles. His legacy is an eternal reminder that the actions of a single leader, a single person, have long-lasting consequences for an entire nation for generations to come. This story is a deep reflection on the choices we all make and the influences we allow into our lives. Solomon did not turn away from God because of his wealth or success. On the contrary, God always intended for him to be prosperous and successful. The problem arose when he allowed himself to be influenced by bad company, specifically through his alliances with foreign women who worshiped different gods. These negative influences slowly but surely distracted his heart from divine principles and led him down the path of idolatry, a path that catastrophically damaged his relationship with God. The fall of Solomon is a profound reminder that our associations and friendships can either build us up or tear us down, shaping our character and our decisions. God calls us to seek success and prosperity, but always with the responsibility of maintaining our integrity and our faith. Solomon's trajectory teaches us that true success transcends material wealth. It is found in cultivating relationships that draw us closer to God and help us live according to His will. By choosing our company wisely, we can ensure that our lives reflect not only worldly achievements, but also a deep and abiding spiritual connection. In the end, true wisdom lies in the pursuit of eternal values and in maintaining a steadfast relationship with God. I hope you have been moved by this incredible story today. If you found value and insight in this journey through Solomon's life, please don't forget to leave a like, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. Your subscription is more than just a click. It helps us to continue bringing more of these deep biblical narratives to people all over the world. Please share this video with anyone else you know who loves to hear the timeless stories of the Bible. Together, let's continue to spread the wisdom of these sacred words to more and more people. May you stay blessed, and until next time.